Welcome to On Our Watch, a podcast about coastal erosion and sustainability in Louisiana. My name is Marian Evans. I'm a filmmaker and a producer of the documentary On Our Watch, a feature-length film that examines Louisiana's coastal land loss crisis and the ways in which it impacts our communities, industries, and culture. The film's director, Jonathan Evans, and I are proud to produce this podcast series that will continue to explore issues facing the Louisiana coast through conversations with local residents, community leaders, and experts. In this episode, we're speaking with Mark Schexnayder. Mark is a career biologist with extensive experience working in the coastal sector in Louisiana. He currently serves as the Senior Biologist at Batture, a civil engineering and land surveying firm based in New Orleans. And now, our interview with Mark Schexnayder. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for joining us today. So you have a pretty rich history of working in various positions in the coastal sector of Louisiana over the years. So what was it that made you want to get involved with Batture?
I had retired from Wildlife and Fisheries, and I started in 2018 and started my own little company. And my client was City Park, but it was a very, very small company. And they're doing some other things. And then the City Park project was coming up back then, and they actually reached out to me. I'm also in the Greater New Orleans Iris Society and Society for Louisiana Irises, and Batture was doing a test planning, and I was involved in it. I was getting the plans with Meg, and that's how they met me. And then they approached me about working contract, and they said, "Why don't you just come work full time?" And I've been there since.
Great. And so, tell me a little bit about the work that Batture does, and what's unique about that company in particular.
We're very small, about less than 20 people, but we have a structural, civil engineering staff, a survey section. We have landscape architects and one biologist.
Yeah.
Hopefully more soon.
What kinds of considerations are necessary when you're dealing with engineering and land surveying in a coastal environment like we have here in Louisiana?
Even inside the levee system, where we're sitting still was wetlands. So, yeah, surveying is different in all parts of the country. This is really unique, being the land form. When you get outside the levee system, there's a lot more energy, dynamics, fisheries interactions, legal issues, permitting. Just it's a whole different world when you get across the levee and start doing something, in the coast.
Mm-hmm. And so what kinds of projects have you gotten to work on since working with Batture, and how do you bring your specific expertise to those projects?
Well, the first big one we started doing was the City Park project, which was one of the cities, part of the Gentilly Resiliency District, $140 million to store stormwater internally instead of trying to pump it all out, get it back into the system. It was a really great project to work on. I had been working with City Park for over 20 years, back with Wildlife and Fisheries, then with Sea Grant, when I was at Sea Grant, back with those Wildlife and Fisheries. And then, so I'm very familiar with the lagoon system and how it was laid out and what needed to be done. So that was a lot of institutional knowledge I brought back, and just fish stocking and the rodeo, how it all fits in, what people's concerns were.
Mm-hmm. So you bring kind of like a scientific bent to the company. You're not an engineer. So how does that work with projects going forward?
Well, I could play like an engineer sometimes. But no, I have a BS in botany and a master's in fisheries. And I did fisheries management for my career. And it just, in the course of doing that for 30 plus years, ran into a whole lot of people, familiarity with the parishes, with the systems. We're working mostly in the New Orleans area, but we're actually doing a hydroelectric restoration project in Vermilion, the lower Vermilion River. We're trying to get a corporate project going back down there. We're talking we may not do it this year. Working in St. Bernard Parish, we do a lot of work on the North Shore. So a lot of projects that I actually worked on back then, like the Pearl River Navigation Project, we're still working on it today, because the dams that were causing a lot of problems are still not out. So.
Right. So you already have a lot of knowledge about all these areas. So that's interesting. I know that Batture also has a strong social mission attached to it. So what are some of the ways that Batture is working to make positive changes in the community and our environment?
That's probably one of the best things about that I like working for Batture, because I was doing that with at Sea Grant, with engaging the community, teaching them, working with them to get projects done. We, like I was telling you earlier, we declared to go the Year of the East to get some stuff done in New Orleans East, and I've been going to meetings out there. We having workshops for the community. Most of it's pro bono. Most of it doesn't result in work. But if it's a good thing for the community and gets other people engaged and brings the community forward, they never stop me doing anything from like that. And it's a good feeling to be part of a team that's really supportive like that.
Right. And I believe, do you guys have something where you are counting the stormwater that you're diverting with your projects?
We do. We try to measure what we do and communicate that. But a lot of times it's just like I said, we do a lot of projects that other people get work from or that move forward that are beneficial to the community that don't get counted on a little raindrop counter, but it's all part of our influence in the community.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm curious to know, as someone with so much knowledge and experience in this field, what are some of the coastal issues that you're most interested in or focused on at the moment?
We have two really big focuses. One of them is when I first got involved, I worked back when I was a Sea Grant with the Flood Protection Authority, looking at protection that can add to the physical protection of the levee system in an ecological way. They call it engineer with nature now, but so we brought one concept we came up with was living shorelines that could protect break wave energy before it hits the levee system. We designed with Flood Protection Authority and LSU School of Architect. The project is getting built right now. Justin Parrish, Winton, Jennifer Van Ryken, and Lauren Averall got all the grants together, and it's being built between Bonneville and Bucktown. It's about a $15 million project. It's going to have a kayak trail behind it, wetlands. It'll be very good for the lake. Fisheries, provide foreshore protection. They're building a $2.5 million kayak launch, so you can go and take kayak in the lake. And then we're trying to bring that. When I first started, instead of competing, I came up with the string of pearls concept that ties restoring the lake shoreline, which is, used to be 100% green. Now about 30% of it is hardened with levees or bulkheads. And then the Pearl River project, which is 2 dams that were put in the 1950s that they're dangerous. They've killed 7 people since I started working on it in 2010. They're bad for access to all this public, tens of thousands of acres of public land, and also prevent sturgeon and Gulf Stream striped bass from getting up the rivers to spawn, which then they're in a threatened status. And that status affects every coastal restoration project east of the river. They have to have consultations. And so what we're doing in Lake Pontchartrain with the living shorelines, in addition to the dam removal, is to recreate better habitat for bring more submerged aquatic vegetation back to the shoreline, create habitat to help bring back the fish as we release the spawning areas in an ecological restoration sense. And then additionally to the living shorelines, we're also working with St. Tammany Parish on some artificial reefs that are very close to the living shorelines to bring that restoration into the lake a little further and to really connect everything back together. So it's got water quality, safety, good habitat for fisheries, crabs.
Very
good,
cool.
Yeah.
So it seems like a project you started you still kind of have your hands in it, or it's still living
Oh yeah,
today.
no, I want to do 50 miles of living shoreline on Lake Pontchartrain.
Yeah.
That's the string of pearls, and then getting the dams out of the Pearl and Bugachita River, which I mentioned earlier, is it's a hazard. The Corps is wanting to give it's a very difficult process. We're working through it. We actually have some good progress lately. So after 14 years, I think we're actually moving in the right direction again.
So what would you say are some of the most important lessons that you've learned over the course of your career working on the coast? And has your perspective changed at all from when you started?
I think, working down in Houma and then Grand Terre for 10 years, down on the coast, and then going to Sea Grant for 10 years, was also a really great learning experience because it's just you really get to interact with the community and work with them. And I just learned to listen to people and ask them what they want and not try to say what I think they need. And it works a lot better than trying to go in there and think you know everything, because nobody does. And if you do that, and it may take a while, on the Pearl River when we first got involved, the big thing was a log jam in the river, which it wasn't affecting the sturgeon as much, but it was affecting people's access to the river. And we pieced together enough money and grants to work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and NOAA and the state to get the log jam out. And then the community knew that we were serious about restoring the river, not just what we wanted to do. And
so tell me a little bit more about the work you're doing in City Park.
Well, I was working with it back in the 1990s, helping them get fish stocked. When I went over to Sea Grant, I asked them what I did, and they said, well, you go do your program and tell us, So I started the Urban Fisheries Initiative, and I reached out to City Park. I'd seen John Kinnebrew work with some shell volunteers cleaning up a shoreline. So I called up the park and said, hey, I want to talk to the pond manager. And I said, what's that? And I said, I know what I had to do. So I went over there and started working with them to look at the lagoon system. It was really bad shape. There was no the lagoon system is very elegantly designed. It interconnects from Lake Pontchartrain through Pontchartrain, flows water through the park system, and then back out. And a lot of those connections there were no connections left. The pumps were broken. Connections. So we started working on those small grants and then restocking the lagoon system. And then right before the storm hit, we had and in the rodeo, the oldest fishing rodeo in the world is in the United States. Oldest continuous freshwater fishing contest is in City Park. So I got together a group with people that really care, like Don Dubuque and Kay Florane and John Kinnebrew and Bob Marshall, and we and a ton of other people redid the rodeo. It was about to shut down. Got Wildlife Fisheries involved in it, and then one thing we noticed is the water quality in the city park was directly tied to Bayou St. John, and so there was a dam by the Greek church. So we got together a group. We made a master plan for the Bayou St. John, got grants together, and got that dam out. And water quality has been dramatically improved in the bayou, and then the water that comes in the park is better as well. So it's been, and then the storm hit and we had to redo everything. So we went and restocked and got the rodeo back on, put on hiatus for a year, and it's still going on today. We're hoping to break the 1,000-person record that Kay set before she passed a couple of years ago. Okay.
That's a huge accomplishment because, so many people use Bayou St. John. It's
Yeah, I grew up fishing there. My kids' first place we took them fishing was City Park, and it's just a really valuable part of the city. And it's so many people appreciate it. But the lagoons just don't generate a lot of money, so it's and the City Park's being self-funded mostly. It didn't get a lot of attention, but people are noticing. They're doing a lot more work there. The sculpture part, so it's getting back, and we've actually sampled 10-pound plus bass in the City Park lagoon system. Wildlife Fisheries has, which is shocking. 3 people have caught 9-pound bass that we know of. One guy caught a 10.5, but he didn't measure it. He didn't weigh it on the official scale. In Bayou St. John's fisheries, they sampled, the Wildlife Fisheries sampled a 10.5-pound bass a few years back. So, for a small area like that you can fish without a boat in an urban setting, it's pretty unique, and it's pretty special gift to have inside the city.
That is very unique. Do you feel like support or interest in coastal erosion and coastal restoration has grown or lessened over the years?
I think it's gotten much more attention, especially with storms and insurance rates. I think people really get the connectivity between not having the buffer between us and storms and a safe place to live and how it affects daily life. So, and then with I think people like CRCL and the Conservancy getting people more engaged and bringing thousands of people out and actively doing conservation projects makes a huge difference, because then they go back and tell people. So I think it's getting, and then having money to do projects didn't hurt anything either. So
yeah, definitely. So you feel hopeful about the future?
I live in hope.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today, Mark. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Well, my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to On Our Watch. We hope you enjoyed our discussion with Mark Schexnayder. Don't forget to subscribe to On Our Watch on your favorite podcast app to be notified about future episodes. You can also watch a video version of this podcast on YouTube, which you can find a link to in the description. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back with another episode next week. This podcast is made possible through grant funds from the Greater New Orleans Foundation and executive produced by Bruno UK Steiner.